Welcome to another Telltale Books video review. I'm going to get involved, at least for this book, in an online book club. Book clubs and me have never been very good because my problem with book clubs, whether they're at the library or online, is that the other people in the club generally want to read books that I have no interest in. So, I mean, nothing against them. They want to read those books. Yeah, that's great. They should read those books. But I don't want to join a book club and spend, because I'm a fairly slow reader, I'd be spending most of my time reading a lot of books that I don't like. And I would never get to read the stuff that really excites me. Well, that has changed. There is a booktuber, has an awesome channel, very funny, lot of personality, reads a lot of great books, a lot of the same stuff I read. His name is Michael K. Vaughn. Love his channel. I watch him every chance I can get. Just like him, I don't have enough time to watch every video by every booktuber that I think is good, but him, I try to watch more of his than most of the others. And he seems a great guy. And he also reads great books. And he started his, I hate names, Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, I think is the title. Roger is his mummy. I mean, Egyptian mummy that is always behind him in his videos. Now you get a sense of just how much fun Michael Vaughn's videos are. Anyway, he started this book club. It's dedicated to lost classics that are free. You can get them online for free, which of course, that's what Telltale is all about. Yeah, we read newer stuff too, but the vast majority of what we read are these old things that you can find online for free. Though we also do love beautifully produced books. We do mostly talk about books that you can find on Project Gutenberg or other, like a lot of the science fiction stuff I'm reading, you can find it in different places of the internet. You can find PDFs where people scanned in the whole magazine, and it's just out there for free, and you can read it. And sometimes the scans are not really good, but most of the time they're really great. And you get to see it with all that original artwork. It's awesome. It's a great way to experience it. So this book club, last month they did Prisoner of Zenda, and well, for February we were kind of filled with all these books about love and stuff that we wanted to do following the Valentine's Day theme, and that was something we decided upon way back in November to do that. And so we had this overly aggressive list of books to read, and just no time for me to join for Prisoner of Zenda. And I don't know anything about Prisoner of Zenda. I've never read it. I don't know if I would like it. I honestly don't. I don't know anything about it. So for the month of March, Emily and I didn't have any ambitious plans for a theme for the month, which is good because we didn't get done with all that we wanted to do for February. It was just too much. So we decided not to do that for March. And that's when Mr. Vaughn announced his March read was going to be Murray Leinster's The Forgotten Planet. Okay, now, I've never read Forgotten Planet, but I've read Murray Leinster stories like First Contact, and, A Logic Named Joe. That is one of our top tales. It's a brilliant robot story. Okay, so he announced he wanted to have Roger's book club read The Forgotten Planet for the month of March. And I was really interested in this. I've always wanted to read The Forgotten Planet. I never have, and here's my chance. No excuses. I've got the time. I've got the desire. I've got a book club where I can maybe join in things a little bit, be more a part of the greater community. So I signed on to read The Forgotten Planet in March. Now, Murray Leinster was a Golden Age author, writing in Campbell's Astounding through the 1940s and continuing in Astounding and Galaxy and so forth through the 1950s. He was one of the older authors, so he died in 1975, and he was not young. He was almost 80 years old at the time of his death. He was born in 1896 and was born in Norfolk, Virginia. His real name is William Fitzgerald Jenkins, but he always wrote under the name of Murray Leinster. Once in a while he used the Jenkins name, but mostly Murray Leinster. His first story appeared in 1918 in Argosy magazine, which is fans of Edgar Rice Burroughs probably know Argosy as one of the places where Edgar Rice Burroughs published a lot of his earliest works. So Leinster got his start writing in Argosy, and he published a variety of fiction, but he also did publish science fiction. I think his first science fiction story was The Runaway Skyscraper in 1919. And now these stories that he published in Argosy way back then, they were reprinted later in Amazing Stories. The Mad Planet, which I'm going to talk about in this video, was published in Argosy in 1920, June 12th of 1920. And later on, in 1926, it was published in Amazing Stories, and that's where I read The Mad Planet, is in a PDF I found of that issue of Amazing Stories. So I went back to the original story, The Mad Planet. The Forgotten Planet is a fix-up novel. I've mentioned this before, where when publishers started clamoring for novels, science fiction writers, they had some novels, but they had a lot of short stories that were written for the magazines. But the short stories were often part of a series of short stories, and they saw that they could easily take those short stories, make a few changes to link them together better, and turn them into a single novel. Foundation is that way. City is that way. A lot of A. Van Vogt's work is that way. So this was a common thing in the early 1950s to have these fix-up novels, and the tradition did continue for a while after that. I don't see that happening much anymore, but all the way into the 1990s, you had authors that would first publish a series of stories in the magazines, and then they would put it together into a novel and publish the novel. A nice way to make a little more money off of an idea, instead of, just publishing a book and that's all you get. You first make the sale of all the individual stories to the magazines, and then you turn it into a novel. But the way they had written stories, the authors in the early days of science fiction, they didn't write a story with the idea of writing a whole series. And they didn't write a series with the idea that it would be turned into a novel, because in the 1920s and 1930s, there wasn't a market for books for science fiction. That didn't happen until the late 1940s with the scientific advances and the news about UFOs. All of a sudden, everybody was interested in science and space and the future. So the publishers wanted novels. But that didn't exist at the time when these stories were written. So Murray Leinster wrote and published The Mad Planet in Argosy in the June 12th, 1920 issue. And it was a popular story, so A year later, he published in Argosy, April 2nd, 1921, a story called The Red Dust. And that's where it sat for a very long time. He went and did other things, and then comes the 1950s. Publishers want novels. He's got these two stories that are related. Together, they're not quite enough. Need a little more. So he writes a third story called Nightmare Planet, publishes that in Hugo Gernsback's Science Fiction Plus in June of 1953. So now he's got 3 stories about this character named Burl on this mad planet. And he's able to take the 3 stories and link them together, make some changes to the stories, to put them together to make a novel, and publish The Forgotten Planet. Can't see it very well. Light's bad here. Man, just won't pick it up. Okay, kind of dark. My edition, I chose this because first of all, it's the only hardcover of The Forgotten Planet I can find. And it's part of a series that I had decided recently I wanted to collect. They were published in the early 1980s by Crown. They started publishing a Classics of Modern Science Fiction series. And The Forgotten Planet was one of the books they published. Now, they only did, I think, about 8 of these, and then they stopped. So, not going to take me much to collect them. I've already got most of them. But when I saw that Michael Vaughan was going to do The Forgotten Planet on his book club, I right away went online and tracked down a copy of this and purchased it and got it sent here. And so now I'm all set for March to read the Forgotten Planet. But first, I decided, well, I want to see the difference between the original stories and The Forgotten Planet, because I'm just weird like that. I'm not generally OCD, but this is a way which I tend to be a little bit OCD. Is I can't just read The Forgotten Planet and enjoy it. It's made up of 3 short stories that were published separately, so I gotta read the short stories first, in order of publication, and then I can read The Forgotten Planet. So, okay, I went back. I can't find a PDF of the 1920 Argosies, but I was able to find a PDF of the issue of Amazing Stories where The Mad Planet was reprinted in 1926. And I read it. Okay. I'm not going to do justice to this story, but here's the situation. It's something like 30,000 years in the future. Something had happened in the Earth's interior to release a lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which plants loved, animal life not so much. So the plants took off, and for whatever reason, insects took off. People survived, but they're living in a world now where there aren't any animals aside from themselves, and most people died. It's just certain people that were able to survive, and they've reverted back to primitive tribes that have forgotten all about our world of today, our civilization. And the whole world has been taken over by mostly like mushrooms and other fungus and insects that have grown to ridiculous sizes because we have a mostly carbon dioxide atmosphere. You know, it's perfect for them, so they thrive and they get big. So things like wasps and spiders get really, really, really big, and mushrooms are bigger than human beings. Reading the story, it feels more like not so much that fungus and insects have grown really large. It feels more like the human beings have shrunk, almost like Richard Matheson's The Shrinking Man. Because now the whole story is the point of view of what you would find in our world if you were shrunk down to smaller than a mushroom and you encountered the insects and fungus that was growing at that level of the ecosystem. And Leinster does go into a lot of detail to talking about the characteristics of the different fungus and the insects, and to the point of putting their real Latin names into the story. So it's almost like teaching you about the insect and fungus world, which is kind of cool because it's more than just a story, it's learning too. You learn something from it. But the story itself, it's about Burl, one of the humans. He's in love with this princess, I believe she is. I didn't note down her name. I think it's Anna or something like that. He's in love with her, but he needs to prove himself. And he happens to be out collecting food, but he gets cut off because he goes to a stream and he sees this big fish and he thinks, boy, if I bring that home, she's going to be all over me. So he tries to kill the fish, but then I forget what it is that comes along after him and chases him. And so then he ends up way downstream, way away from everything he knows. He's lost and he's got to try and find his way back. So now you've got this journey through this world of all this giant fungus and all these different insects, and he encounters them and has adventures and has to fight his way, struggle to survive and get back with the fish to the love of his life and live happily ever after. I know that sounds kind of lame, but it's the hero's journey. Those of you that like Joseph Campbell, that have read The Hero with 1,000 Faces, this is the hero's journey. It is exactly the hero's journey of mythology. And so it's a much more sophisticated story than you would think just looking at the surface of this thing. Or maybe I just happen to love hero's journey stories, and so that's why I love it. But it's pulp fiction, it's not high literature, but it's still so much fun. It's simple, but it's still so much fun and so interesting. And I found myself totally captivated by this story, and so this is a top tale. This is a classic, man. Okay, if you can call Edgar Rice Burroughs great, then you can call The Mad Planet by Murray Leinster great. Here's the thing. This story is very much a complete story. There's 2 more stories, which were then turned into a novel. How did Leinster do it? Well, the other stories hold up. Similar series like this, like the one by Nelson Bond that I did a few videos on, which took place in a future America which had collapsed into tribes of people. That one, it's like there were, I believe, 3 stories. The first and the third story were really good, but the middle story was crap. Hopefully Leinster avoided that trap. We're going to find out. I'm going to read the next story, The Red Dust. It's coming up very quickly. I want to get these read before March. Well, probably not before March, but before too deeply into March, so that I can start on the actual Forgotten Planet along with the book club. Forgotten Planet itself is going to be pretty short. 209 pages, smallish pages of pretty big point size type. I'll be done with that in less than a week. A lot of people are going to be done with it in a day or two. It should be interesting for the book club. Something so short and fast. You know, going to be done with it in less than a week, and what do you do with the rest of the month? Actually, it's a good thing, because then you have the rest of the month to read all the other stuff you want to read that the book club isn't going to read this month. So, once again, this book club is just the best book club. So, I would, even if you think I'm weird for wanting to read all the original short stories, I would say if you're interested in cheap old books and classic science fiction and other classics that you can get for free online, join this book club and read along with us. I think it's a really cool idea. I think it's the book club that's been waiting to be formed, the book club that we all have been dreaming of. So go to Michael Vaughn's page and take the link into his Discord and sign up for his Discord and get the book and read it. Like I say, I went and found a really nice hardcover copy in this classics collection because I want to collect the entire line of these crown classics of modern science fiction. But you don't have to. You can go to Project Gutenberg and find The Forgotten Planet for free. Or I'm sure you can go into Kindle and find it for 99 cents. And read along with us in March. And I'll be back with videos talking about not just the short stories, but the novel itself, and comparing and contrasting any differences I can find. So I hope you'll join me and come on back and watch these videos, watch the rest of our videos, subscribe to our channel, like our channel, leave comments, join the book club, join our Patreon, and help us out by paying a very small amount each month to help us achieve our dreams, which will hopefully bring beautiful books into your hands. And check out our website, where I've got all of Murray Leinster's stories and a lot of other authors. I'm currently working on adding Thomas M. Dish, who I want to get into some videos of his work one of these days. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook too. We post stuff there, and there's a lot of interesting stuff we've got going on all over the place. And I hope to see you in the next video.